Good evening, and welcome back to the latest edition of the Four Score Speaker Series. I'm Jamie Stout, Director of Membership for the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library Foundation. As we go into our 7th month offering virtual programming due to the COVID closures, we're all learning so much, and we're really being engaged all across the nation. We appreciate your continued support of the foundation and our mission of providing cultural and educational programming. Tonight, we are also joined by some of our friends from the African American History Museum, as Pat and I are members of both of these organizations. We are excited because we're going to start creating programming for them as well. And so we wanted to give them an opportunity to join us and learn a little bit more about Sojourner Truth as well. So we welcome everyone tonight. Tonight, we're joined by Pat Davis as Sojourner Truth. Pat and her husband, Bob, are Springfield residents. They have 3 children, 7 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren, as well as 1 on the way. As Bob got into Civil War reenactment, Pat decided while she was along, she might as well not sit around. She wanted to learn a little bit more about some things that she could as well do. So she was very self-taught. And tonight she's going to portray Sojourner Truth, but you might have recalled seeing her in September where she was Mary Elizabeth Bowser for us. And then next month you can tune in for Bob as Frederick Douglass. So we look forward to having him as well. As always, we will entertain everyone's questions tonight, so please type those in the Q&A box below. We will get to as many as possible after Pat's presentation. So without any further ado, please help me welcome Sojourner Truth.
My soul is happy, my soul is happy, my soul is happy today. My soul is happy, oh so happy. My soul is happy today. Who the author? Good evening. I have not always been known as Sojourner Truth. For the first 46 years of my life, I was Isabella Baumfree. That was my enslaved name. From the time I was born in 1797 in Ulster County, New York, up until 1826, when I was 29 years old, I was enslaved. Now, most people did not know that slavery existed in the North. They only thought that slavery was in the southern states. But many northern states had slavery, as New York did. But they abolished it much earlier than the southern states. Tonight, I'm going to share with you or reminisce about my journey on becoming an abolitionist and a crusader for women's equality and rights and suffrage. I was born on the farm of Colonel Ottenberg in a little town called Aesop in Ulster County, New York. My mama was there, Mama Betts, and my papa, Papa Baumfree, and my little brother. Now, let me tell you this. I talk to God, and God talks to me. The first I learned about God was when Mama Betts took me and my brother Peter outside one night, and she said, "Children, up there, God lives up there. Now, when you are sad or feel very lonely, you talk to God and He will help you." I think Mama Betts thought that maybe my brother and myself would be taken away from her like her other children. Mama had probably 13 children and seen almost all of them sold off into slavery. So she knew that would be very lonely and very painful for the child. So she prepared me and my brother for the day when that might happen. Now, we were at Colonel Ottenberg's farm, but he died, and his son, Charles Ottenberg, inherited all his father's property, the livestock, and his slaves. That meant that my family went to live there at Charles Ottenberg's place. He did not have places for the slaves to live and sleep. So we all slept in the cellar of his house. It was wet, it was dirt, and it was cold, but we all slept there, and my place was on a plank of wood. Now, Charles Ottenberg was not a good manager like his father, the colonel, was. So, in order for him to not lose everything he had to sell off his livestock and his slaves. So, I think back, this is what Mama Bet was afraid of. So, she taught us about God. All of the slaves got sold except Papa, because by now he's very old man and stooped over and not able to really work. So he was turned out. That's what they call it when the slave no use anymore. He was turned out, and Mama Bet, now old too, was left there to help him. But everyone had been sold except me. Nobody seemed to want me. So Charles Ottenberg say, I sell 100 sheep and the girl go with the sheep. So this man, Mr. Neely, he buy the sheep and I go in with the sheep to Neely's place. Neely and his wife were English. Now, the thing is, being born in Ulster County, it was a Dutch settlement. So the only language I knew or heard about was Dutch. So I speak the Dutch. Neely and his wife do not speak the Dutch, they speak English. I not speak the English. So because I not understand what she say when she tell me to do things, she beat me. And one day she got really angry at me because many of the customers did not like her. The customers were Dutch and they did not trust the English. So she angry because of that and she beat me. Then another time she tell me, you go to the barn. Master Neely there waiting for you. He got something for you. So I go to the barn and Master Neely yelled words at me that I not understand. And every time I not understand, he beat me, he hit me, and he beat me and continued to hit and beat me over and over again. Now I am a 9-year-old little child, and he beat my body so bad the back is cut open with scars and he's bleeding. I fall out and fall to the floor from the pain. When I wake up, I try to do something about my sores, but there's nothing I can do because my clothes were torn from the lash. Then not too many days after that, Papa Betts and Mama Betts come to see me at Neely's place. And Papa say, Isabella, or Belle, that's what they call me, Belle, what is wrong with you, my child? You have no shoes and your clothes are torn. So I say, Papa, they not give me shoes or warm clothes, and it was snow on the ground. So Papa say, Bill, I tried to get some help for you. So when Papa leaving, I walked behind him in his footsteps so that I not get the snow on my feet. And at the gate, he want to give me a hug goodbye. But I said, oh, Papa, that hurt. And he said, child, what is it? So I show him my back. And Papa say, Bill, I will help you. So not too long after that, a man come, a Mr. Schreiber who owns the tavern, and he's a fisherman. He gives Neely more money than the $100 for me. And I go to Schreiber's place. I stay there at Schreiber till I'm 13 years old. Anne Schreiber and his wife, they speak the Dutch and the English. So I began to learn the English pretty good. Then one day I was helping in the tavern and I heard two men talking and they say this word, abolitionist. I not hear that word before and not know what it means. But they say the abolitionists are talking and wanting to free the slaves. And I say, oh, I like that. I slave. I want to be free. So I listen to what they say. They say many people, abolitionists, and they go around talking about how to help free the slaves. So I remember that. But then Mr. Schreiber wanted to sell his tavern and go out to fish all the time. So he sold the tavern to a Mr. Dumont. Dumont come and get me and take me to his place. Dumont treat me much better than the others. He just as nice as Schreiber. At Dumont's place, I meet another slave from another farm. His name Robert. Robert like me and I like Robert. But Robert's slaveholder not want him to see me because he say, if Robert and me have the children, then those children would belong to Dumont. So Robert's slaveholder tell Robert, you no go visit her. You stay here and I get you woman here. But Robert still want to see me. So he sneak over to see me. His slaveholder find out and he come and he beat Robert so bad that Robert not live after that. Then Dumont tell me, Belle, 'tis time you have a husband. So he have me marry Thomas, an older slave on his farm. Thomas had had two wives before, but they had been sold away into slavery from him. So me and Thomas, we marry and we have children. So Dumont say to me one day, this was many, many years after I go there. He say, Belle, you such a good worker that I am going to give you and your family your freedom before the state gives freedom to the slaves. Oh, and I say, Master Dumont, that is very good. I work extra hard. But when the time comes for Master Dumont to keep his promise, he decide that he say, Belle, you not work as hard as you should because I had cut my hand and it was hard for me to do the work, but I still work really hard. And I say, Master Dumont, I work extra hard for you so that you will give me my freedom. But he say, you must work more. I decide that I could not stay and work more. So I decided in my mind that I am going to be free. Then one day I say, I'm going to leave here, but I cannot leave during the day because they see me. And I cannot leave during the night because I cannot see. So I decide that soon as I see the sun will be coming up, I will leave. So then I say to Thomas, Thomas, let us go and get and take our freedom. But Thomas say he not going. He stay there. So I say, Thomas, I have to go. So I know that the freedom would come in one more year in the state of New York, but I not want to wait. So early the next morning, I get my baby Sophie because she's still at the mother's chest, and I walk away from Dumont's farm. I walked to a place where a man I knew who could help me, but I got there and he is sick. So he told me about friends who are Quakers to go there. So I do that. And I go to these people who are von Wagner, and they take me and little Sophie in. And not too long after that, Dumont come for us. He say, Belle, you come back. You come back now. So I say, Master Dumont, I'm not come back. You say you give me my freedom, but you do not do that. So I take my freedom. He say, Bow, you've run away from me. I did not like that. I say, Master Dumont, I did not run away. I walked away to my freedom. So I tell him I'm not coming back. So then he say, I take the baby. Then Mr. Dumont say to him, I give you $20 for Bill and $5 for the baby. So Dumont take that. Then I am free. Von Wagner bought my freedom. So Dumont leaves and Mr. Von Wagner say, Belle, you baby can stay here. So I go to say, thank you, master. And he say, Belle, I'm not your master. No one is your master except God. No man is a master over another human being. So I stay at Von Wagner, and I now call myself Bell van Wagner. But I hear this very, very sad news that my son Peter in trouble. So I feel that what will I do? And I feel sad, so I started to singing my song. I sing, sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home, a long way from home. So after I get the news about Peter being sold off into slavery, I go out in the back and I pray to God because I'm very sad and I feel so hurt and alone. And I say, God, Mama Bet say, when I feel sad and hurt and alone, to talk to you and you will help me. So I God say, go ask for the help from the people. They will help you. So I tell the Von Wagners what happened. And they tell me about a friend of theirs who has a lawyer who could help me. I go tell him the problem. And he tell me, you give me money, I will get your son back. So I do that, but it takes long time for Peter to come back. In the court, when Peter's back and the judge want to give him to me, Peter say, that's not my mommy. And I say, oh, I your mommy. He say, no, that's not my mommy. And the judge say to him, that is your mommy, you go with her. So I take Peter with me back to Von Wagner. We win the case because it was illegal that they sell Peter out of the state of New York. They sold Peter to a slaveholder in Alabama, and that was against the law in the state of New York. So Peter now free. So I take him home to get him ready for bed, and Peter say, Mommy, don't, my back, it hurts. So I look at his back, and it is bleeding and covered with welts and cuts. So I said, oh, child, what is this? And he say, Mommy, the master beat me and tell me to say, you not my mommy, because he want to keep me. So I say, oh, my child, this is terrible. So I put the salve on Peter's back and he get better. So Peter stayed with me at Van Wagner and we worked for them to get paid. We joined a church and things are well. But at the church, we meet a lady who tell me, Bill, you should go to New York. There is work there for you, and your son Peter can go to school for colored children. So I like that. That sounds good. So me and Peter, we go to New York, and Mrs. Greer, that's the lady's name, she helped me get a job. I do cleaning work for two families. Me and Peter have our own place, and Peter go to school. And we joined a church. We joined the Methodist Church, the AME Methodist Church. But Peter not like going to school. Peter become bad boy and got in trouble. So eventually, as Peter got older, I decide that Peter needs to leave. So I got Peter a job on a whaling ship. So he goes out to sea on the ship. The Peter writes to me 3 letters, and I have someone read them to me, and I have them write back to Peter because I not know how to read or write. It was illegal for slaves to learn how to read and write. So after the 3 letters from Peter, I not hear from him again. And when the ship comes back, Peter not on that ship. So I don't know what happened to him. But at the church that we had joined, I became very interested in singing with them, and they have a woman preacher. So I say, oh, she can do that. I can do that. So I started also preaching at the church and going around the city holding prayer meetings with people and preaching and singing. And this is good for me. So I meet many people during this. But I begin to feel that I'm not as happy as I would like to be. So I asked God, what should I do, God? And I hear God say to me, go east. So I tell the lady I'm working for, the next day, I tell her I am leaving, I am going east. So I take the boat up the river, going to Connecticut. But at the first stop in Long Island, I get off the boat and I started to walk. So I stop at this house, a Quaker lady, and I asked for some water. And she say to me, yes, I give you water, but what is your name? And I think, I no longer want the slave name, and I'm going to travel and tell the word of God and preach. So I tell her, my name is Sojourner. I'm going to travel and tell the word of God. And she said, what is your last name? And I think the word of God is the truth. So I'm going to travel and tell the truth, the word of God. So I say to her, my name Sojourner Truth. And I like that. I no longer have the slave name. So I called myself always now Sojourner Truth. I walk through Long Island, New York. I go up to Connecticut and I preach in all of the cities and I sing to all of the people. I preach about slavery and how bad it is and how bad my life had been in slavery. Sometimes people not like what I say and they cause problems, but I continue to sing to them and to calm them down. So my singing to them make them feel better and they calm them down. I walk all over Connecticut into Massachusetts and I begin to feel tired after so long. So I find a place called the Northampton Institute of Training in Education and Technology. So these places where the colored people and the white people work and live together. They get paid for the work they do. They make silk, but they also have people come talk to them about freeing the slaves and also equality for women. So I meet Frederick Douglass. I meet other people who talk about freeing the slaves. Wendell Phillips, Parker Pillsbury, and William Lloyd Garrison. They all come. And I hear that word again, abolitionist. I like that. So I say, they go talk about slavery. I've been slaved. I go in with them and talk about slavery. So as they traveled around, I went with them. Then I met some women who came to the Institute and they talk about equality for women getting the right to vote. And I say, yes, women need rights. The women, colored women need rights as much as the white women. So I meet people like Lucretia Mott, Susan B. Anthony, and they are women who are talking for the equal rights for women and freedom for women. So I go with them to hear also. One day, as I was with Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass speaking, Lloyd Garrison asked me to come and tell the people about my life as a slave. So I do that. And many people cry as they hear my story. And they begin to say, that is terrible. The slaves should be freed. And I meet this woman, Olive Gilbert, and she says, Sojourner, Frederick Douglass was a slave, and he wrote a book about his life as a slave. You should write a book about your life as a slave. So I say, I cannot read or write. And she said, if you tell me your story, I'll write it for you. So she wrote the first book about me. It is called The Narrative of Sojourner Truth. It is only 103 pages, but it tells my story at that time of what my life was like. So I take the book with me as we go to different places to speak. But the book does not sell that well because people don't know me at all by that time. So that's okay. But then I meet another woman, Harriet Beecher Stowe, who introduced me to her father. And she said, Father, this is Sojourner Truth. She is a preacher. That was interesting too. So Harriet Beecher Stowe write an article about me, and she called it the Libyan Sibyl. Now, the Sibyl means that is a prophetess. So after she write that article, many people learn about me and hear about me. So when I go other places, they know my name, they know who I am. Then I go to speaking places with the women who were speaking for equal rights and justice for women. And one day there is a conference in Akron, Ohio, and I go to that too. Now they not want me to talk because they did not want me to talk about the slaves issue and freeing the slaves. They did not want that to get mixed up with the women issue of equality for women. But the lady in charge say, ladies and gentlemen, this is Sojourner Truth. And I had not prepared a speech, but I go up on the stage and I talk anyway. But I had heard that there were some men who were talking there who say that women needed to be helped everywhere into carriages and given the best place everywhere. So I say to them, nobody ever helped me into a carriage or give me the best place everywhere. Another man say, women do not deserve the same rights as man because God was not a woman, or Christ was not a woman. So I tell them, well, where did your Christ come from? And I say, from God and a woman. That man had nothing to do with it. And then I say to them, if the first woman that God ever created was able to turn the earth upside down all by herself, then these women ought to be able to turn it back again. So after that speech, many people wanted to talk to me about who I was and my time as a slave. So I feel real good about things now with my new name in my books, and I feel like I've been changed. So I sing, Lord, Lord, I've been changed. Lord, I've been changed. Lord, Lord, I've been changed. The angels in heaven done wrote my name. I got religion and I'm not ashamed. The Holy Ghost, my witness, knowing I've been changed. Lord, Lord, I've been changed. The angels in heaven done sign my name. So after that speaking engagement in Akron, I took my books and borrowed a wagon and a horse, and I walked all over Ohio into Indiana selling my books. I had 600 books printed, and I sold them all. And as I walked all over the states, I preached the message about freeing the slaves and giving women the equality. Many men not like that because men felt that only the colored men should get the equality and the right to vote. But I felt that the colored women worked just as hard as slaves and take the brutal treatment as slaves and also get the inevitable sexual abuse. So they deserve just as much freedom and equal rights as the men. So I continue to preach that, and many people do not like that. But I soothe them again with the singing. I had bought a house up in New Hampshire area, but after I travel all over Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan, I find a place in Michigan that I like just as much, and it was in Harmonia, Michigan. It's a place where the colors and the whites live together and they work together. So I like that. So I sell my house and I moved to Michigan. There, I still preach about abolishing the slavery. But then the war broke out. So I began to help recruit men of color to fight in the Civil War and to raise money for them to buy the uniform and the food for themselves. One of my grandsons joined to fight in the Civil War. But at that time, a lot of slaves had been freed with the Emancipation Proclamation. So I went to Washington to work with the Freedmen's Bureau to help the former slaves adjust to living outside of servitude. So while I was in Washington, I go to meet President Lincoln because I want to ask him to help the former slaves to get some land and able to build houses and businesses to be able to take care of themselves. So I had a friend who helped me get an appointment with President Lincoln. So we go see him, and he say to me when I come in, "It is good to see you, Miss Truth." I say, "Mr. President, it is mighty good to see you too." And I tell him that I admire him more than any other man who sit in that seat as the president. And he say, "I suspect that's because of that Emancipation Proclamation." And he say, "If my predecessor, whatever that means, had the opportunity, they would have done the same thing." And I think that did not happen with the other presidents. But I say, "Mr. President, when you took this office, I feared for you that the lions would eat you up like Daniel in the lion's den. But God protect you." And I say, "If God let me survive, I will come and see you before your 40 years are up." And then he showed me the Bible that the colored people of Baltimore give to him as a thank you for the Emancipation Proclamation. And I say, "Mr. President, would you impress upon the Congress to set aside some land in the new territory so that the former slaves could build houses and businesses and take care of themselves?" So he did not say he would or he would not. But I felt that he treated me with such respect. I asked him to sign my little book, and he did. He signed, "To Auntie Sojourner A. Lincoln, October 24, 1864." But before he could do anything to help out, he was shot by that man. So I think, oh, he is gone. Who will be there to help now? So I go see the new president and talk to him about getting some land for the slaves. And he not talk to me at all. He was not very nice. I did not ask him to sign my book. So then when the newer president come in, Mr. Grant, who was nicer to me when I went to see him, and I asked him if he would help to get some land for the former slaves. It sounded like he was interested in what I had to say and that he might help. So I asked him to sign my little book. But President Grant disappointed me. He not help at all. So I decided I have to do this myself. I went to the Congress and the legislators, and I talked about the slavery and the fact that the slaves had contributed so much to this country's wealth that they should be able to share in some of the proceeds of it. So they did not listen to me, but Senator Sumner from Massachusetts did. He said, "If you can show that the people in the country are supportive of this, I will take it before the Congress for a bill." So I go around the country, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, getting people to sign the petition to support giving land to the former slaves. that took about 2 years. So by the time I go back to see Senator Sumner, he had died. Oh, I was so heartbroken because now my hopes and dreams of getting some land for the former slaves seemed to be gone. But I still work to help the women get the right to vote because women could not vote, they could not sign legal documents, they could not sit on juries. They had to have either the father, the brother, or the husband to make decisions for them. They could not do anything. So I continue to work and talk about equality and freedom for a woman. But the women did not get the vote for a long time, as far as I knew. I was getting older, so I went back to Michigan. And eventually I did find out that the free slave had been given some land in Kansas as a result of the Missouri Compromise and the Kansas-Nebraska Act. So I visited them, and that was the last thing I was able to do um, as I was working for the freedom and for the equality for women. So I want to tell you that I have been pleading for my people, and I feel that things will work fine for them. I continue to live in Battle Creek, Michigan for the rest of my days. Now, good night to you. Good night.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. We have tons of questions coming in because people are so interested in your history and your life. So, Sojourner, tell us a little bit more about your religion. In my research, it looks like you have attended several different churches, and you also mentioned tonight you attended a Methodist church. What religion were you? And just tell us a little bit more about that.
When I was in New York with the Van Wagoners, I did join a Methodist church. It was an all-white church there because it was the only church there. My mama Bet had instilled in me that God was the best friend that I could have. So because of that, I knew I needed to be in a church. When I left New Paltz, where the Van Wagners lived, and went to New York, I joined a Zion AME Episcopal African Methodist Church there. And there was a woman who was the preacher, which was news to me. So I was impressed by that and felt that I could do that too. I began to preach. I never learned how to read the Bible, but I learned the Bible from listening to other people and from talking and praying to God. So I would not say that I had a particular religion. I was a strong believer in God and Christ.
Very nice. Cheryl actually asks, you were noted for your outstanding singing and preaching, of course, but did you have a favorite hymn or a Bible passage that inspired you?
No, I did not. Many of my songs I made up on the way, but many of them had been done by other people too. But no, I did not have a favorite one.
Very nice. Well, we loved your singing tonight. That took me by surprise and definitely was a favorite of
Thank
mine.
you.
Wendy has asked, how old were you when you went to the Van Wagoners?
I was 29.
Okay, very good. Nia Hassan has asked, please explain your role in the women's suffrage movement. Is it correct that the exchange for the ratification for the 19th Amendment by Southern states, white women agreed that they would not push for Black women to be included in the amendment?
I believe that is probably true. The problem was that nobody, but me, really pushed for the Black women to be included. It was my feeling that Black women had contributed so much and worked just as hard as the Black man um, to help this country and to survive through the slavery, that if they could not get the rights, that then they would never, ever, ever be able to rise up above being in servitude, even though the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed, but they would still not be free. I felt they deserved to have freedom as well. I think the white women felt that that would hold them back if the women of color were also pushing for the freedom at the same time. Many of the white women in the suffrage movement with me, they had money of their own, but I did not. So the only way that I could support myself was through the selling of my book and through selling of pictures of me, which I said buy the shadow to support the substance. So they did not have to worry about trying to be get that freedom. They had men taking care of them. So they did not push and fight for the colored women to get that freedom because they thought it would hold them back.
Right. In my research, I also noticed that you just had very few worldly possessions, and that was really one of my questions. How did you make it along the way when you had so little?
God provided for me. I met the very nice people who allowed me to stay with them. They gave me food, they gave me clothing. But when in New York, I worked for two different families. I did the cleaning work for them. So I did have some money coming in, but God provided for me.
Absolutely. Um, an audience member tonight has mentioned that definitely women of your era were expected to be quiet, submissive, weak, dependent. Um, but you were very outspoken. You were self willed, very strong and independent and assertive. How did you find the courage to do this?
I think being enslaved and being treated so bad, you to survive, you become strong. I think that I knew that there was nothing on the other side, so why not push forward?
Absolutely. Jack asked, do you know if you had anything to do in the Hudson River area because there now is a statue of Sojourner Truth on the western side of the Hudson Walkway?
Yes. When I first left New York, I took the boat up the Hudson River and I got off at the first stop, which was on the Hudson River, and that is where I started walking further east, northeast. So, yes, that is where I really began doing my preaching and talking to the people about slavery and eventually about justice and equal rights for women. So, yes, I spent a lot of time in the Hudson River area.
Absolutely. One question comes in tonight. Whatever happened to your children? And you also mentioned maybe you had a grandchild.
My daughters stayed on the Dumont farm as paid servants when the New York State abolished slavery in 1827. They stayed there. My baby Sophia I sent back to the Dumont farm to be with the older girls. My daughter Diana had sons, and one of them joined the Civil War, and another one of them traveled as my companion for many years and read for me and to me.
Oh, very nice, very nice. One question come in from Pam Brown. She wants to know if you ever met Mrs. Lincoln.
I never met Mrs. Lincoln.
Very nice. So then there's a few questions that might be best out of character, I suppose, and just maybe you as Pat Davis, and just
Okay.
very good. How do you think Sojourner's Truth's work has paved the way for women today?
I think a lot of her wisdom and a lot of her tenacity um, has helped women today feel that they can also move forward. The actual suffrage movement that occurred in the early 1900s that ultimately led to the 19th and 20th Amendments giving women the right to vote. I feel a lot of that work that Sojourner and the other women, Lucretia Mott, Susan B. Anthony, that they did was the precursor and paved the way for that. I think that the strength that she had and the tenacity that she had, given all the hardships that she had been through, nowadays show women that you can do this, you can achieve.
Very good. Mary Francis in the audience tonight asks, do you believe gender or race was maybe Sojourner's biggest obstacle?
I think gender.
Mhm. Which is interesting. Yes, very good, very good. And why do you say that?
Well, I think gender is an issue nowadays, even. We talk about the glass ceiling. We talk about the fact that men continue to are higher paid than women doing the same type of work. Often the quality that women produce might be better, but still they're not paid to reflect that. That's getting better. I think the fact that we're still struggling with the Equal Rights Amendment is um, shows that we're still quite a male-dominated world, and we have never had a female to lead this country, whereas other industrial countries have.
Yep. If Sojourner Truth was here today, what do you think she would say?
Oh, she'd probably say, "My God, my God."
Keep fighting the good fight that she started for us. That's for sure.
I think she would. I think she would definitely be out on the soapbox.
Very good. Very good. We could use her. One of the questions comes in from Melody, just to you, Pat. How did you get interested in portraying Sojourner Truth?
Um, I was fascinated by her, what she was able to do given her very limited um, upbringing and the fact that she had such a deep and abiding faith. God actually took care of her. So that was fascinating. And that she spoke out and she spoke the truth.
Absolutely. Well, as I wrap up tonight, I again just say you did it again, Pat. You definitely knocked it out of the park. It was definitely an emotional presentation and definitely something that we can reflect on and appreciate the history lesson tonight. I personally, as I mentioned, I loved the singing. It took me by surprise, a good surprise, and I loved it. So I know I speak for the entire audience tonight. It was very educational, and we certainly thank you so much. Um, Tonight's presentation is being recorded, and we'll send you out a link tomorrow, everyone. It's also always saved on our YouTube page and our Facebook page. We definitely encourage you to share this with youth. Especially when you do this, you're encouraging future historians. We're continuing to tell the story like these and just lifelong learning. So it's important to continue these stories.
Well, you're very welcome, and it was my pleasure to be able to do this, and thank you so much for inviting me to share this character and bring her to life.
Absolutely. So we again thank you.
You're
Just a
welcome.
few more announcements. You might have seen already, but today it was announced that the ALPLM will be closed starting Friday for the next 4 weeks due to the rising number of COVID cases. But don't worry, we have tons of virtual programming already lined up for you and more coming. December 7th, we have Jason Emerson. He's an author of Mary Lincoln for the Ages. And then December 15th, we have Bob Davis as Frederick Douglass, and that is one not to be missed for sure. So again, check out our website, our members only Facebook page for all upcoming events, including we have some fabulous options as well in January and February. So as we close out tonight, there will be a short survey. Please help us to continue to improve these opportunities. Last month, you gave me some really good ideas for future webinars. So again, put those down or reach out to me in the future if you have an idea for something upcoming, because we want to continue these and we want them to be what you want. So again, we thank you so much for the continued dedication. We are grateful for any contribution, big or small. So we encourage you to go to our website, www.alplm.org, to help us continue the efforts of carrying on Mr. Lincoln's legacy. So again, thank you, Pat. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And thank you everyone tonight for joining us. Be well and have a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks, guys. Good night.
Good night.